Footage can't stop talking about umami, the savory taste that is taking over the culinary scene and which along the sweet, sour, bitter and salty is one of the 5 basic tastes that our tongues perceive. But if you are a fan of Chinese takeout, you have been Team Umami for the get-go. This is because MSG, the fabric often associated with Chinese food, is unami in its purest form. And while you might have been told it is bad for you and cause that is called Chinese restaurant syndrome, science disagrees. As much as we associated MSG with Chinese food, there is nothing anything inherently Chinese or even Asian about the compound.
MSG stands for monosodium glutamate, which is the sodium salt of glutamate. It is an amino acid that the human body can synthesize, but we can also get from our food. Like other amino acids, glutamate is an important building block for proteins. It helps nerve cells transmit the signals to other cells in the body. It is the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the vertebrate. Since it is so important to our bodies, it is not surprising we have evolved a taste for it. We have umami-specific receptors on our tongue and in our stomach. Because of this, it drives our love for food that contains glutamate like tomatoes, mushroom, and aged cheese.
Purified MSG was not a thing until early 19th century when a Japanese chemist realized that the paste made from kombu seaweed in his soup imparted a delicious flavor that was not one of the 4 previously established tastes. By isolating the crystalline salt of glutamate from the kelp, he invented the purified MSG, Ajinomoto, which means essence of taste in Japanese. Soon after the invention of MSG, it became commercialized worldwide until a renowned sauce company, Heinz and Campbell, started adding MSG into their products. Though it was said to be invented in the early 19th century, glutamate itself has existed way earlier than that period.
Our universal love of MSG is not just from its savory goodness. Studies have shown that umami functions as a flavor enhancer, creating a harmony between various flavor and aroma, and adding a sort of dimensions to the phenomenon known as the umami synergy. This sounds kind of nebulous, but consider a 2007 study published on the European Journal of Science. Researchers of Oxford University has offered 12 volunteers sip on an umami drink made of water, MSG, and the nucleotide while sniffing a vegetable aroma. On their own, both umami drink and the vegetable aroma were considered unpleasant and bland, but when combined, they were rated higher and they just seems to go together better than a salty drink paired with the same smell. What was really telling though was that the brain activity maps shows way more neuro associated with flavor and pleasure leads up from the combo that would have been estimated by adding up the isolated effect of each.
Misconception: the artificiality of MSG, which is always said to be not natural, not fresh, and processed. Eating natural and healthy is a consumer trend nowadays. So more and more consumers desire to eat food products with simple and no artificial ingredients. The preference for all natural foods has an impact on the perception on MSG risk. So nowadays, hearing people eating natural and healthy is nothing surprising, with more and more consumers desiring their foods only consisting of no artificial ingredients. So MSG, on the other hand, is always deemed as something artificial, which is confused between them, and some even say it is a poisonous chemical. Another reason for the misconception is chemophobia, which is an unreasonable fear for chemicals, which is a common public reactions to scientific or media reports suggesting that exposure to various environmental components or chemical may have health threats to them. So most people think that MSG sounds like a chemical and it is made from a plant or a lab, and they also assume that MSG is not naturally present in their daily food. So some also think that MSG is the abbreviation for bisphenol A, which is wrong. So although a few people believe that MSG exists in their conventional foods, but they think it is an ingredient in high concentration form in those foods, and some people have doubts of the manufacturing process, which lead to more confusion and the MSG controversy.
Generally, people always have this question in their mind. Is MSG sodium chloride? Is it harmful to human health? The public thinks that MSG is a different variation of salt or preservative just because of the existence of the word sodium. With that word in tow, they simply decide that MSG potentially causes high blood pressure, complementary with the typical health risks regarding sodium chloride. Instead of being open-minded about the benefits of MSG, people tend to make baseless assumptions such as MSG is solely used for shelf life extension and flavor enhancement. When asked about the validity of that information, Facebook or WhatsApp chain message always be their so-called trustworthy source, followed by family members and their personal experience.
Given all this, you might be wondering, my company now proudly proclaim that their food does not contain MSG, or people say it makes them sick. Well, while our love of MSG comes from biology, a lot of people's aversions to it seems to have a root to something else entirely. It all started with a 1968 letter to the editor of the New England Journal of Medical describing the author's and his friend's so-called Chinese restaurant syndrome, followed by the consumption of Chinese food, including symptoms like heart palpitations, generalized weakness, and radiating pneumonia. This idea took hold, spurring years of biased science based on the false assumptions that Chinese restaurant syndromes was a real thing and that MSG caused it.
Subsequent animal studies seemingly confirmed the idea, but this often consisted of injecting super concentrated doses of MSG directly into creatures' abdomen, which is not exactly a scientific approach to determine the effect of MSG sparkle-induced substance. The effects obtained from animal studies are obesity, neurotoxicity, and destruction of reproductive organs. Obesity results in increase of the blood glucose, insulin, triglycerides, and cholesterol level. Besides that, MSG solution cause overactivation of the glutamate receptor in the brain, result in screaming, stiffness of tail, moving and knotting of head, generalized convulsion, and seizure. Not only that, the reproductive organ of female shows cellular hypertrophy of the theca folliculi, distortion of the basement membrane with the separation of the endoselfin from the myoselfin, percolation of stroma cell, and lysis red blood cells in the ovary when injected with MSG. However, over the last 3 decades, a number of double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, including studies of subjects with reported sensitivity to MSG, have failed to find a reproducible response to ingesting food with MSG. A much more likely explanation for feeling crummy after Chinese takeout is the nocebo effect, where you feel sick simply because of the belief that something will make you get into sick easily.
MSG can easily be broken down by the intake of certain kind of vitamin like vitamin A, vitamin C, D, and E. Quercetin and deltasome have also been suggested to play a protective role in MSG-induced toxicity. Vitamin A and C have been shown to protect nerve cell and cerebral cortex in mad albino rat models. The supplementation of vitamin D and D in MSG-induced oxidative stress led. Besides that, it also improved the levels of glutathione. Quercetin have been also proven to reduce glucose, leptin, and creatinine level. Further, new research explored the function of quercetin in amelioration of cognitive damage and reduction of TNF-alpha. Quercetin acts as protective agent against neural damage due to its effect of decreasing the expression of MGLUR5. The properties that help balance glutamate levels, scientists have suggested that introduction of combination of quercetin and MSG in the market.
Scientists are always one step ahead of the haters. Investigation into the potential health benefits of MSG is ongoing, with research suggesting it can help increase the salivation and appetite in the elderly, increase satiety and therefore reduce calorie intake in those trying to lose weight, and help impact fever while reducing overall dietary sodium. Oh yeah, MSG does not deserve its toxic reputation, but you do not need to avoid your favorite restaurant just because they are just used a little.